Welcome to another episode of Suburban Bourbon. This is episode 7, season 3.
That's right.
And we are here at Lake Erie Distillery with Fred Wisen and his wife, Kathy. And we're going to talk a little bit about the distillery here in beautiful, beautiful Willoughby, right off of Route 2. I'm familiar with Route 2 because I'm from Lorraine, on the other side of town. And we're going to find out a little bit about the distillery. Of course, do what we always do best, have some drinks, taste some, and actually they have some great cocktails here as well.
I know. So let's start off with learning a little bit about how you got into this business. But before we do that, what's the address here?
4277 Hammond Parkway.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about how'd you end up in the whiskey business?
Okay, well, it was a little bit by happenstance, and the fact that my wife used the word yes once.
We can appreciate that.
Yes.
So the whole story behind that is I've got the other industrial sales business. It's coming up on 40 years old. My son's been working over there for about 20 years with me. I'm an outside sales guy. I'm stuck in an office. I'm pushing paper. I'm answering emails. I'm not having a good time. And I've told everybody who's ever worked for me, if you don't enjoy your job, you need a new job. So came in and told my son, listen, I need a new job. He said, I don't know how the employees are going to take that. So we needed something. I didn't know if I needed a new line, if I needed to change something. Something had to occur. At the same time, Kathy wanted to go down to Florida, and we decided we were going to drive. Now, the cool part about this, the rest of the story, is my wife doesn't drink.
Interesting.
So partway through Ohio, I decided, let's do a distillery tour.
At least you'll have no theft.
Exactly.
I've got a DD for the whole trip. So she likes to go to distilleries and just see the operation, see the equipment, but she doesn't drink anything, so it worked out real well. So we decided we're going to do this. We went to only small distillers. If you had more than 5 or 6 employees, we didn't stop. I didn't want a commercial. I wanted the guys that are, really doing the work. So we did Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida.
Wow.
Took us a week and a half.
Wow. Talk about bourbon trail.
No kidding. It was your own trail.
Exactly. That's a trail that most have never seen. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. We went to guys that are really doing some innovative things, just amazing stuff. And then some guys that, were still, 50 years back in making product. But so we go to Florida, we do our thing down there, we come back up here, and I'm a bourbon Scotch drinker. So I go and get a bourbon, and it's just not right. Somebody sitting next to me is having one, and it's just not right. And people keep saying, if you want good bourbon, you have to go to Kentucky. Light bulb went off. No, if you want good bourbon, you need a distiller in Ohio making good bourbon. So I come to Cass, said, you know what, we should start a distillery. And she said, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That was the first and only time she's ever agreed with me. And it has cost
We're lucky Kathy did.
Yeah, exactly.
It has cost her dearly. She's never going to agree with me again.
Never again.
So part of it too is over the course of years we've been together, I've come up with some just wild ideas. And she's always said no, 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 no. And it's always worked out that she should have said no. This one she decided to say yes. I grabbed her, I drugged this into this business, and that's how we got here.
And it's truly a family business. You were saying earlier, your mom is a part of.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those. My daughter is my bartender on Saturdays. Wow. My mom, who's 90, puts the barrel numbers on the bottom of all of our bourbon barrels. Yeah, it's really cool. She actually is the only one who has good handwriting.
I can appreciate that.
Nobody else would know what the numbers were. So she does that. My son Tony helps out. My daughter Lauren comes in and helps out. I mean, it's an amazing thing.
We've got the grandbaby now where she comes in and checks the stills to see if there's anything running. So.
Perfect. You're creating a legacy.
I know, exactly.
This girl just turned 3 today.
Yeah, today's
when
her
she
birthday.
comes in, the first thing I have to do is take her out to the stills. She opens up the top to make sure that there's nothing inside and I've cleaned it out. Okay, so it's my
So she's your quality control.
She's my quality control.
So you were also saying, Fred, that there's another role you play in the bourbon world here in Ohio. Tell us a little bit about that and your involvement.
Yeah, I'm with the Ohio Distillers Guild. I'm treasurer for the guild. Great organization. It's one of those that the whole purpose is to escalate all of the distillers to make us all better. So we do educational programs. We do lobbying down in the state to get some laws passed for us It's an amazing group. It's an amazing group.
That's fantastic. And you've got how many products?
We have a whiskey, and that comes in 3 variations. Our whiskey's a 2-year barrel-aged whiskey. Then we take that, we infuse it with a maple for a maple whiskey.
Ooh, nice.
And we have a cinnamon whiskey coming out December 1st. All of those, the idea behind what we do, we don't do anything artificial. It's all natural. And my perception with this is if you spend 2 years making whiskey in a barrel, you don't want to overpower it with flavoring. So the idea is to complement, not overpower. So we do that. We have a 4.5-year barrel-aged bourbon, 53-gallon Char 4 American Oak Barrel, Speyside Cooperage, Dayton, Ohio. All of our grain comes out of Ashtabula County. Our spent grain goes into Geauga County to a hog farmer down there. So we try to do everything we can local. In fact, 80% of what we produce and use comes from the state of Ohio.
And that's a staple of a lot of the local, the Ohio distillers. Everyone we've talked to gets their stuff local, which is cool.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's a great way to really promote all the other businesses that make your business.
Absolutely. We do that with the beer that we carry. We're not a bar by any stretch, but we have a selection of beer for those people that want it. But what we did is we found small brewers in Ohio who are trying to get started where they can't be taken seriously. Well, we'll put it right here in our cooler. Helps them out.
I think it's fantastic, and I think we were saying before we started the show that was what Suburban Bourbon was all about, just trying to get people to go back out to bars and restaurants after COVID, promoting Ohio. And we've done some shows outside of Ohio, but it's really about Ohio, you know, and there's a lot to offer here when it comes to the creativity of not only restaurants and bars, but certainly the distilleries.
Right.
So what's your most popular spirit?
Well, our most popular is going to be when we go to the vodka line, is our dill pickle vodka.
Really?
If you do Bloody Marys, this is like the secret ingredient.
The ultimate, huh?
It really is. I've had people come in who say, I don't like Bloody Marys. In fact, we had a group in here a couple of weeks back. 2 guys come in and say, I don't like Bloody Marys. They had 2 apiece. It just changes it that much.
Wow.
It's like the secret sauce.
You know, this is the second one we've seen. We were at Minglewood, I think we were saying, part of the guild, I believe. Yep. And they have a pickle bourbon.
A pickle whiskey.
Pickle whiskey, and my daughter's a big pickle fan. I mean, the Pittsburgh Pickle Fest, Cleveland Pickle Fest, so I got it. She loves it. Yep. And that must be the new kind of the flavor out there. People enjoy it.
And it's funny because we did a tailgate for a Buckeye game, and we tried it in a Bloody Mary. And it was really good. So
we're doing some of that.
So now I have another option.
The other thing that we do is we do a Jamaican style rum. We're one of the few distillers in the country that makes Jamaican rum. 3rd run of molasses, blackstrap molasses, sugarcane, yeast imported from the Caribbean. It is a true Jamaican rum. We don't use sugar anywhere. Fermented at a high temperature, so you get a little funk in the middle of the rum, just like you're supposed to. And that's pretty much our product line, right, Kev?
Except for our seasonals.
Yeah, well, that's right. Oh, we do our seasonals. Okay, can I do a little promotion here?
Absolutely, you can. Winter whiskey.
This comes out November 8th. We do
18th.
18th, I'm sorry. We do 2 seasonals a year.
Ghost.
That comes out in October. That is a 5-grain, toasted grain, unaged whiskey. So the reason we call it Ghost is the grains present themselves one after the other on the palate. So you get corn up front, malted barley, toasted oats, rye, and wheat in the back of the throat. Okay. We sell out of this every October. The winter whiskey is a spiced whiskey. It's a 2-year barrel-aged whiskey, spiced with South American wood. There's no spices in it. Spiced gumdrop, I think is what you consider.
Yeah, some people say gingerbread, but I get more of a spiced gumdrop kind of flavor from it. Yeah.
So, and the other thing I like, and we've been noticing this a lot with a lot of the Ohio distillers, it's not the 120 proof stuff. I don't Joe and I we said this a lot. I appreciate Scotch. I'm not a Scotch drinker. I appreciate hot bourbon and whiskey, but I like it in the I think our sweet spot's usually the 90s, but in the 80s too. Think somewhere where you can actually taste the bourbon, or whiskey and actually taste the flavors and not be overwhelmed by the alcohol.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm always amazed when you have a high proof bourbon and it's smooth, because that really is that there's a riddle there that was solved. But this is definitely.
Yeah, we do our bourbon at 90 proof.
Yep.
It's one of those that, and you're absolutely right, if you raise the proof up too high, you take away the nuances
Absolutely.
that's underneath. And that's really what you want, are the nuances of the liquor or spirit that you're drinking.
Yeah.
So tell us, and I get this vibe from you and you and your wife. Somebody doesn't know a lot about bourbon or whiskey or spirits in general. Is this worth coming to? Talk about their experience as maybe they're a little nervous, like, boy, I don't know, go to a tasting, I don't understand a lot.
Yeah, because a lot of people are intimidated by doing tastings because they're new to it.
Because you come in and talk to me, right? The first thing that's going to happen, we're going to set you up for a tasting. We're going to go through the story of every single liquor we have. If you have a question, we're going to go through this between whiskey and bourbon. What's the difference? How does it get there? When you get the whiskeys that are hot, why are they hot compared to where mine's at? All of those. You want to do a 20-minute tour in the distillery, it'll take you an hour and 20 minutes.
Wow.
Okay. You get me started back there, and I just turn me loose.
But that's a good thing. I mean, we've said it because we're not experts, and so when we first started, to be honest, we probably faked it. We couldn't tell the nuanced flavors. You kind of could, but not really. As we've probably good or bad had more bourbon.
We've had a little bit
now
of practice.
I can drink and go. We immediately go, oh, oaky or this.
Yeah.
And but it is intimidating for some people. They don't, they have that belief. It's like wine, where I don't know anything about this. So they can come here and actually feel comfortable and meet you and Kathy.
We get a lot of people who come in who really don't understand the spirits.
Yeah.
Okay, who say, is it gluten-free? Well, all alcohol is gluten-free. All alcohol is sugar-free. All alcohol is fat-free, lactose-free. Exactly.
Right.
But yeah, we do a whole educational program. Whatever somebody wants to know, we'll let them know. How do you tell good bourbon from bad bourbon just by looking at the glass? We go through that with them if they want to know.
So what are some, you had said you're a Scotch and bourbon guy. So what are some of the brands outside of your own that are ones that you go to?
Well, on the Scotch side, I'm a Glenlivet 12 and a Glenfiddich 15. Those are my go-tos. Quite honestly, if I'm not drinking my bourbon, I'm drinking Scotch.
Nice.
It's one of those that I have a hard time finding a bourbon I like as much as mine. Now, that may be a little bit selfish, but...
So that being said, when you actually started distilling the bourbon, how did you land at the proof, and how did you come up with the mash bill that you have?
Well, the way I looked at it is that with anything we have out there, if I won't drink it, I don't make it. And that was the criteria we used for everything. So with the bourbon, I kind of went back to the Scotch a little bit. I don't like really peaty Scotch.
Mm-hmm. With you, I'm with you.
But I like the flavor that comes from the barrel that you put the Scotch in. Yeah. And that's kind of what we did with the bourbon. We're looking for not overly oak. We're looking for a sweeter taste. We use a higher percentage of corn in our bourbon because I like a sweet bourbon. I want to sit by the barbecue. I want to sit by the fire pit, pour it in a glass, and just sit there and sip on it. My wife comes out and get me about the third one. Let me know it's time to come in. It's snowing on me and I don't know it.
We're taking away of this. Kathy's a phenomenal wife.
Yeah, it's snowing. Is that how winter whiskey got its name? He was out there too long.
But it's one that I was looking for a very drinkable bourbon, and of course bourbon has to be in a brand new barrel. So you take the bourbon out of the barrel. Now what are you going to do with the barrel? Oh, we make our whiskey out of our bourbon barrels. So 4 years in the bourbon barrel, drain the bourbon, put the same distillate back in. 2 years in the barrel becomes our whiskey, and then we discard the barrel. We only use them twice.
I think you're not a big Scotch drinker either. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
We've had some of the Japanese whiskeys that are fashioned after Scotch are kind of like what you're describing, where it tastes like Scotch, but it doesn't have the remaining flavor of peat in you after it's clean, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does.
And I like that. It's kind of what you're describing, like just a softer taste to it, where you taste it and then you move on.
Exactly. Yeah, I find with the Japanese Scotches, because they use a coffee still.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They tend to get that flavor out of it.
Yeah. the best part of we say job, it's really not a job.
Oh, no. I don't
Per our
think
wives.
exactly.
Our endeavor is actually tasting.
Absolutely.
And so I think what we'd love to do is, I mean, if you come here and visit at the Lake Erie Distillery, and we'll take a picture of this and put it as part of the show. They have several awesome cocktails. They also have some seasonal cocktails, which are phenomenal. And you even have a few snacks here if you want to sit down and enjoy. So maybe we try some of these phenomenal cocktails, and then maybe do some tastings of the whiskey and bourbon.
Exactly. So when someone comes here and they're not sure what to get as a cocktail, what do you lead them towards? I mean, what
First thing
if they're a bourbon person?
If I don't know what they drink or they're not sure what their favorite is, we do a tasting first.
Makes sense.
Because if you don't know what the base content is, it's really hard to consider a cocktail from there. And my opinion is like building a house. If you don't have a good basement, you shouldn't put the roof on. So we always do a tasting first, run through the entire line of product, see which one they really like, what flavors are talking to them, and then we go to a cocktail. And if they want a cocktail that's not on here, my bartenders are really good at coming up with some good stuff.
All right. Well, I think that's the move. Let's do a tasting, just like you would, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So we're back now. We're going to start doing the fun part.
That's right.
We're going to actually taste some of this.
So Fred and Kathy are going to walk us through a tasting, and you've got them set up in a particular order. So talk us through the order, and then we'll start the tasting.
The reason we have this order is that we go from mild to extreme. And quite honestly, if you do the extreme first, everything after that's going to taste is going to carry over with this one. So we'll start with the vodka. We don't make our vodka from grain. Our vodka is made from whey, byproduct cheese process. When you make vodka from whey, a couple of things happen. That bite that vodka normally has drops down dramatically. The viscosity goes up a little bit. So it has a little silkier mouthfeel to it. Sustainable, water positive, and carbon negative. So it is a green liquor, and I can do this. Every bottle we make, we do our part to save the earth.
Very nice.
Yeah, so it's a sipping vodka.
Yeah.
Wow.
So then,
That harsh taste goes away.
It's it's
And,
totally
and not to
absent.
say it's harsh, but you know the vodka. How vodka sticks with you
Exactly.
after you drink it. This is nice.
It is, and so and that's not something that's often. Like when you think about vodka, you think about cocktails.
absolutely. Yeah, when I have somebody pour somebody a tasting of straight vodka, they go, well, you got to mix it with something? I don't need to. You know, the bars in the area that have this are doing things like lavender and thyme and doing botanicals now.
Yeah.
Or you just muddle a raspberry in the bottom of a glass and pour the vodka in, and now you have, you know, the flavor carries through.
Very nice.
That is.
Okay.
And in Cleveland, you should have that.
Absolutely.
So I'll tell you what, this next one is one, and it seems to be a very popular, especially like this time of year.
This was originally our spring seasonal,
Okay.
and it was just so well received that we couldn't pull it. So it became an all year round product.
So that's a 2-year barrel aged whiskey infused with maple at the very end. And again, it's all natural. There's nothing artificial in that at all.
So is there a certain, like when you infuse it with maple, is there a certain amount of time, or like what do you, like how does that work in the process? Or do you, if you don't want to disclose?
Can't tell you. The way we do this, as far as I know, we're the only ones that are doing this method with it.
I will
So
not.
stop talking,
I will,
Joe.
exactly. Oh, it smells so good.
It smells like breakfast.
We have a local ice cream shop that's using that to make milkshakes with, boozy milkshakes.
Oh, wow. You know, so that, you described it this way, you're exactly right. It's sweet, but not syrupy sweet. It's just clean sweet. Does that make sense?
It definitely, and you hit it. I mean, this is breakfast in a breakfast in a bottle.
Yeah, it's breakfast whiskey.
That is so good.
If you haven't patented that, trademark it tomorrow. That's,
Yeah, I know exactly.
I'm not sure how well that would be received, calling it breakfast whiskey.
yeah.
Well,
on your way to work whiskey.
I was gonna say.
I tell people here, make some pancakes, sausage, pour yourself a big glass, enjoy breakfast. Most important meal of the day.
Oh, that is.
And that's, in both of these, we should mention, are both 80 proof,
Yes, those are both.
which is good. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. The next one also is 80 proof. This is our 2-year barrel-aged whiskey.
Okay.
It's the base that we use for the maple and for the cinnamon. And it has a story behind it. And I'll pour you
So
through
I
the
see the name is Juniors.
Okay, so we knew we were making an American whiskey, and we called it Sailors to begin with, because we were like, Lake Erie, Sailors, right? We took it to an event, and everybody's like, "What kind of rum is that?" And we're like, "Okay, well, this name fails." So we put it out on Facebook to our followers, and we're like, "What should we call this?" And they came back with all these kind of patriotic names and that, because it's an American whiskey. And I said to Fred, I'm like, "What do you think about Juniors?" And he's like, "Juniors?" And I'm like, both our dads are juniors. They both served in the war. They're both Army veterans. So let's use Juniors as the name. So this is our tribute to, our American heroes, whether they're your war heroes, just a hero in general. So that's what Juniors is about.
That is fantastic.
American whiskey, because there's too many other variations out there. This is a straightforward whiskey. You're also going to find it doesn't have a big bite to it. In fact, doesn't have any bite to it.
Oh, that is very straightforward.
Yeah. What flavor are we tasting? There's something I'm tasting, a flavor.
Okay, now this one has a little more barley in it than what our bourbon does.
Maybe that's what I'm tasting. It's smooth. It's not
what
off-putting. I
proof
mean,
is
it's
this?
good.
80 proof.
I was going to say, because this is,
That's a smooth taste.
it's real. But it's got a decent flavor profile.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because that's the other thing too. At that, when it's a lower proof, sometimes you lose it, and there isn't anything to it.
Yeah, you water down the flavor and it just dissipates.
Exactly.
And sometimes the smaller distilleries, I think it's probably because of the aging process, and this does not have this. It's just an overly corn taste where it almost doesn't feel finished. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And this feels finished.
That is really good, and I think it's the homage to your parents as well as to American heroes. That's a really great story. I mean, I love how you tie it all together with the American whiskey. That's definitely one. And like you said, both of us love, whether it's neat or whether it's on the rocks. That's a great sipping whiskey.
The message is, if you love America, you should buy some.
If you're a real patriot.
If you don't love America,
then, exactly. If you don't love America, then don't come to Lake Erie Distillery. Otherwise, well, you're like, you can come either.
we're just kidding.
Yeah,
All are welcome
exactly.
here at Lake Erie Distillery. Lake Erie Distillery.
So then we go to my thing.
That's your
That's our
favorite.
bourbon. Okay, so our bourbon is minimum of 4.5 years. Barrel age, char 4 American oak barrels, 53-gallon barrels, Speyside cooperage, Dayton, Ohio. They sit out back in our quote rick house, which happens to be shipping containers.
Nice.
Something about wooden structures by residential, I don't know.
It just doesn't work.
So we bring this in. It is single barrel bottled at 90 proof. I like the nuances between the barrels. Enjoy.
And it looks like I'm seeing a Bartender Spirits Awards, silver.
It is 2022 out in California at the Bartender Spirits Award. Came back with silver medal against U.S. bourbons.
Nice.
Wow. Congratulations.
And you're going to find it to be a little sweet bourbon.
It is.
It is. I really like this.
Okay. So
But you still have enough. Like again,
Yeah,
what I
it's
like
also-
about 90, the 90 proof area, because this is 90, is that you still have, you're drinking bourbon.
Yeah.
But this has there's no heat on the way down.
It almost has like a cherry taste to it, which is, I know there's not cherry in it, but there's a maybe that's the sweet I'm tasting. That's really good.
yeah, so we start out with this one. We use limestone water,
Just like they do down in Kentucky.
just like they do in Kentucky. We use number 2 dent corn, just like heirloom number 2 dent, just like they do in Kentucky. We ferment it, just like they do in Kentucky. We barrel it, just like they do in Kentucky. And we bottle it, just like they do in Kentucky.
So how did you learn all this?
My background is engineering and science. And I was one of those kids growing up, I read encyclopedias.
Remember those?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people don't.
Exactly.
They used to come in books.
For kids out there, those are books. And you had everything from A to Z.
It was basically Google in print.
Exactly.
If your parents didn't buy the whole set, well, you were out of luck.
Yeah,
Go to
exactly.
the library.
Exactly. A lot of times you might not have the letter Q.
Yeah, you used to see it comes at the grocery store.
Yeah, I know.
Now I did. Now I dated myself. But it's one of those, to me, a lot of this is science. And that's what we do here. It's science. I want the product to be the same every single time. If you buy this bottle now and you buy a bottle a year from now, it should be the same. Other than nuances of the barrel, it should be the same. The vodka should be identical. The 2-year whiskey should be identical. I think the worst thing you can do to somebody is get a bottle, you love the bottle, you go back and buy another bottle, it's like, what happened? It's not the same product. So for me, consistency of the product is the most important part.
Do you plan on having, you said it's at 4.5, are you planning to, as as years go on, have other barrel offerings that might be
We do. We have
a longer duration?
That we pulled off that are going to age past probably up to 8 years. Okay.
Nice.
The problem, I should say the problem, it's not a problem. We're going through barrels, so it's really hard to put a barrel away.
Good problem to have.
Yeah, because we kind of need it for the bottle. What we did do, though, for my granddaughter, we mentioned that a little earlier, we took the very first barrel, we got it all the way in the back of the rick house with an X marked on it. When she turns 21, that's her barrel.
That is
Oh,
cool. At first, I
yeah.
thought you were going to say you had your granddaughter go back there and taste it. She's 3.
Exactly. She's quality control. I mean, do your job.
But yeah, it's sitting back there
That's
with her name
awesome.
on it.
That might, okay.
That's
You
a
might be
cool
the
story.
coolest grandparents
Yes.
of all time.
Yeah, who when they turn 21 gets a 21-year barrel-aged bourbon?
We have to be invited to that graduation.
I was going
party.
to say, 18 years from now, you may see 2 people pop up.
So, it's funny, we were talking before the show, Fred, and, the whole idea of waiting 4 years and, think of bourbon that's 20 years or 18 years. I mean, from a business perspective, you have to know what you're doing to start getting into that part of it, letting it age. Because if you're wrong, you won't know you're wrong for 4 years.
That's a lot of wrong.
It is.
Exactly.
It is. And so it's a risk, but you've done it the right way.
Yeah, and the other part too is a lot of other distilleries will source for the first whatever number of years, 4 years, and then start distilling. I think what's kind of neat is you're doing it all yourself.
Right. Yeah, everything is here. It's the guys that have been in business for 10 years that have a 30-year bourbon. It's like the numbers don't make a lot of sense to me.
I know.
So, and people say, do you make it here? Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I like the fact that you're doing it that way. I know that you see. I call it the hyper distilling process. Where it'll be, the 2-year will be the same as a 12-year. I don't even understand that process. Mm-hmm. I like this, just the traditional. You're doing it. You're letting it sit, and you're tapping the keg. Or the barrel, rather. It's an Ohio State Saturday.
Yeah, exactly.
But you tap the barrel. I mean, it's just the way it should be done.
Right. And Kathy was really big when we got started in this to make these our products. Because there's too much of that going on where people are just co-packing or private labeling somebody else's. This wanted to be ours. So I can pick up this bottle and say, that's mine.
And now these particular whiskeys, well, I guess really all of them. Where can people in Northeast Ohio find these?
We're in about 65, 67 stores across Ohio. Any OHLQ. Okay. What I tell people to do, and this is part where a lot of people don't understand, is there's over 4,900 different products that an OHLQ store can put on the shelf. Well, nobody has enough shelf space for all of that. So what they put on the shelf is what people are asking for. So if you don't ask for it, it's not going to be there. So anybody comes in here, I say, listen, when you go to the store, if you don't see my stuff and you like it, ask for it. By contract, they'll put it on the shelf for you. And if they don't, then just let me know, and we have the capability of placing it. I'll place it in the store for you.
Oh, that's
wow,
great.
That's nice.
That's a great thing to remind people, because I don't think most people don't know that. Right. And I mean, and the reality too is, we're over, we're on the other side of town, and I haven't seen your stuff out there, so we have we got some talking to do.
I think I may have seen it in Giant Eagle. I think the one at Westlake.
Okay.
I think we might be there.
Okay.
Yeah, Westlake. Yeah. Yes.
They carry a lot of the Ohio, which is nice.
Yeah, we're through northern Ohio. We're just starting to break into down south of Columbus. So we're starting to move in that area. We've got some places down in Hillsboro and Wilmington
Nice.
that we've placed it.
Nice, very nice.
So we're having fun with it.
I'll tell you what, you've got, and what I love too is you said it at the beginning, you've got a story behind all of these. So,
Yeah, and the other story too that we should mention, and that's the sponsorships and things that we do that you're big in. My wife is big in karma.
Yeah, you
To
gotta
get,
give back.
you got to give.
Right.
So there are 3 categories that we give to all the time, and they are
Veterans, children, and animals.
Very
Because
nice.
the veterans gave so much for us. Children can't help themselves, so you've got to help them along. And some animals don't get treated the way they should.
no, and I
Very
totally
worthy.
agree. I think every time I see a veteran, I thank them.
Yep.
I think that's the ultimate sacrifice.
It is.
And so I appreciate that you recognize that, especially you recognize it with one of your offerings here.
Absolutely.
okay. Then we go to our Jamaican rum. Like I said,
Nice.
we're one of a few distillers in the country that makes Jamaican rum. And what makes it Jamaican rum? It is the 3rd run of molasses, this blackstrap molasses and sugarcane. The yeast we import out of the Caribbean. We ferment it at a high temperature for 2 weeks before it goes into the still. Basically, we make it during the summer. We put the barrels outside so the west sun can beat on the barrels. Cranks it up to about 95, 98 degrees is where the yeast actually does what it's supposed to do. Put it in the still. It's molasses forward, a butterscotch up front. There's a something in the middle. Gets sweet at the end. The something in the middle in Jamaica, they call that the funk of the rum. If you don't have funk in your rum, it's not Jamaican rum, it's Caribbean rum.
Be a song.
Oh.
So let me ask you: is this the same barrel that you use for the whiskey?
Actually, it is not barrel aged. It's in stainless steel.
Interesting. Okay.
Because what we don't want to do is, and you'll find out with like the ghost whiskey, is the flavors, the way they present themselves, if you try to age it, they start to meld together.
And then you get a whole different flavor.
Yeah.
You get something that's not there. With the rum, what you're going to find is it starts out with butterscotch on the front of the tongue. There's a something in the middle of the tongue, and it gets sweet at the back end. The first sip is always confusing. The second one is always better. Because the first one you're thinking, the other rums that are out there, and your brain's thinking that, and you're saying, well, that's not what I'm drinking.
Oh my gosh, you were right.
The butterscotch is.
Butterscotch, the first one. A little sweeter, the second one. It's like you've had this before, Fred.
This is a really unique rum, though.
Yes.
And I'm not a huge rum drinker, and I think it's interesting how you delineated between Caribbean rum and Jamaican rum, because I guess I've never known the specifics around how this is different. But that's a really good rum.
Well, you can
What do
actually sip it.
exactly. So what are some of the things that you do with Jamaican rum? Because most of the time when I think of rum, I think of just cocktails that you're going to have by the you're sitting in a cabana looking out the water.
Well, traditionally, Jamaican rum is designed to be drank just like you're drinking it now, neat. However, for a lot of people, that's a little too intense. So ginger ale works well with it. If you want something to go to the sweet side, ginger beer, amazing with it. You mix it with ginger beer, it's right there. Surprisingly, a little splash of peach schnapps in a cocktail makes a great after dinner cocktail.
Peach schnapps in the house. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, really.
That was one of the early introductions in my drinking
This would be great,
experiences.
like you said, in a milkshake. That would be a nice, a toasty rum, boozy milkshake.
Well, I like the maple boozy milkshake
Oh, my gosh.
too. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
We could have more than one.
No,
Absolutely.
I know, really. Yeah, why would we restrict to just?
There's no reason to stop.
And what's the name of the ice cream shop that does boozy?
Fairport Creamery in Fairport.
There you go.
Shout out.
Okay, so then we have our Ghost Whiskey, which is only available during the month of October. We bring it out the first weekend of October. We sell out of it about mid part of the month. Okay, it is a 5-grain, toasted grain, unaged whiskey.
WHISKY, not EY.
Yep.
Not EY.
Yeah.
Way whiskey was back in the
That's right,
beginning.
That's right.
Okay.
school.
Old. We're traditional across everything. It's all natural ingredients, nothing artificial. I mean, it's.
I love it.
I think the only one we did traditional spelling on is the American whiskey because it's an American whiskey.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And Americans like to spell things a little differently.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love the name.
Yeah, I do too.
So how'd you come up with the name?
Okay, so the reason we did this is the grains, the 5 grains in here, present themselves one after the other on the palate. And they actually transition from one to the other. So just like a ghost, they show up and then they disappear. So what you're going to find with this one, it's corn on the front, goes into a malted barley cereal, toasted oats coat the middle of the tongue, a touch of rye comes in after that, and you get the wheat in the back of the throat.
Fred, you're a sorcerer.
I know.
Some people call me a mad scientist.
I thought the ghost was because of the color, to be honest with you. So that's a cool, I like how you've described that.
Yeah, no. And I like that you only do it in October.
You can smell that grain right out of the gate.
Yeah, it's full grain.
I will say this
You
too.
were right.
And the way that you explained it, and when you actually do the tasting, it happens that way. That's a.
And the aftertaste I have is almost a nutty taste.
Yeah.
Probably the grain I'm tasting.
Yeah, it's toasted
It's still,
grain.
it sticks with you. Yeah, not in a bad way, not an overpowering way, just a
No,
a
but
tasty
almost
way.
like you said, almost like you're having a toasted cereal of some sort. That's good
That's
stuff.
good.
So, what are some of the things that people do with Ghost whiskey?
Actually,
Obviously, you could just drink it.
that is about the only thing you can truly do with it. If you add anything to it, it muddles the flavors. Okay, and at that point, you kind of lose the effect of what the Ghost whiskey is.
I mean, how did you come up with you brought up if you age it, it muddles the flavors as well, right?
You know, a lot of it is science, chemistry, and quite honestly, I've made some bad stuff out here.
That's okay. That means you've made good stuff then.
Yeah, I've made some stuff that there was nothing you could do with it. So it's experimentation. I mean, it's one of those that this is the part. I tell people since we started this, I haven't worked a day in my life. Okay, this is fun. I enjoy this, slinging 50-pound bags of grain, all that wonderful stuff. I still have fun with it, right? Do I still have fun? Yeah.
You do. Yeah, he has a love. This is definitely his love.
And I think it's interesting too because
Second one.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Come on, Kathy.
Kathy, 38 years, congratulations, phenomenal. But I think what's interesting too is you brought up a number of things today. You both have brought up consistency, right? And the only way to get consistency is to identify when you don't have it and that it isn't a good batch, and that is I have to when you know that you have product that you have just went and distilled and you can't sell it, that it takes a really good distiller to go, that is not what we were about, we're moving on from that, and then to be able to course correct and pivot. I mean, I think that's awesome.
Like I said, it's one of those, if I make something and I won't drink it, it doesn't go in a bottle. We had that, we brought in the assistant distiller, and for the first 2 weeks, it was retraining him. And what he was used to putting into the barrel, we don't put in the barrel. Okay, that stuff goes in the trash. We take our heads, we give it to a painter who thins his paint and paints the outside of buildings with it, which is interesting. You get corn smell as he's painting buildings. But it's one about being tight on your cuts and being consistent about what you're doing to make sure you got a quality product every single time.
It's funny. One of the things I always say, in all things I do, measure twice, cut once. Because the reality is, if you spend your time being very specific about it, then you end up with good product, whatever industry you're in. Right. But I can definitely say I appreciate that, and I love how you walked us through what was going to happen. And I mean, I can see why you sell out at Ghost Whiskey.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and we detail everything. I mean, our documentation, our data. We have a 7-page form we go through every time we do a run. I mean, I want to know exactly what happened. If you sneezed, I want it written what time you sneezed and where the proof was at when that happened.
So Fred, is there, it just occurred to me when you were talking about the distilling process, is part of the guild, and we had some good conversations about that. Obviously, how you're trying to promote, you and others, the spirit industry here in Ohio. Are there any resources you share that help all of you in that way? Because I've heard things like that, but I've never been really told the story how that works.
So the secretary of the guild, Joe, who happens to be the owner of Echo Spirits down in Columbus, does this really great thing about setting educational Zooms up. So we'll have somebody who does enzymes. We'll have somebody who does yeast, chillers. laws, all of that. So he sets up these educational opportunities that you can pop in on a Thursday at noon and spend 30 minutes getting all kinds of information. The really cool thing about that is at the end, you have contact information for everybody that was there, so you can call them and continue with getting information. So it just makes everything better.
And it's great camaraderie.
Oh, God,
I'm sure you're cheering for, obviously you have your own line and want to be successful. You sort of cheer on the other folks to be successful in their markets too.
We've had startup distillers who've come up here and spent a day with us going through the distilling process. What kind of equipment do they need? Where can they get a bottler at? Those type of things. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
it's just the right thing to do.
Winter whiskey.
Love it again.
November 18th it comes out.
November 18th, and so what's the story behind winter whiskey? Like, how did it get its name, and what's the makeup?
Well, the story behind that is a lot of people came in and they were asking, do you have a spiced whiskey? Okay, well, the problem with most spiced whiskeys is you're talking about cinnamon, and you're talking about enough cinnamon that it overwhelms the whiskey. And that's not what I want to do. That's not where we're at here. So we wanted to come up with something that had some spice to it, but wasn't overwhelming. And that's how we get the winter whiskey. So the winter whiskey is our 2-year barrel-aged whiskey. 6 weeks before we bottle it, we open up the cask, we put in South American wood into it, and we draw the spices out of the South American wood into the whiskey. So spiced gumdrop is what comes across on this. And I will tell you, of all the whiskey sitting up here, this is the only one my wife will drink.
You are right.
That's a good
It
one.
is gumdrop.
It is right. People say gingerbread, but I get gumdrop.
I could see both.
Yeah.
I could see both.
I could see, and I would have probably said gingerbread, but I see it. That is
like
really
a cookie
good.
taste. Yeah, it's
And what I love too is that it's not overpowering, because I think that's the riddle on most flavored whiskeys is that you go too much.
Wow. That's
And
really
then it's like a pack of Big Red you just ate. You know what I mean?
Right. And what we didn't want to do is, a lot of times with flavoring, particularly artificial flavoring, you have to put it with simple syrup before you put it in. Well, now you got this sweet kind of thing going on. And to me, you take away from the whiskey. So as I've said before, if I'm going to spend 2 years looking at a barrel, the last thing I want to do is destroy what's in the barrel.
right on.
And I think the other thing with winter whiskey, just for all those watching, is that it's subtle. It's not overt.
It's not syrupy.
No, it's not syrupy. When you get that spice, but it's not at the cost of like too much.
Right.
That's a really
I could
good
see this
whiskey.
in a hot toddy.
Yeah.
Would be a nice addition.
Again, since there's nothing added to it other than drawing the spices from the wood, it doesn't change the texture composition of the whiskey. It looks like whiskey. It pours like whiskey.
What did you think of the wood? Like
I was going to say exactly.
wood. Where'd you come up
Yeah,
with that?
well, how did you come
get
up
it?
with? How do you get it? How did you come up with that?
I'm telling you, he's a sorcerer.
I know.
This comes back to that mad scientist thing. Okay? So the way it worked out is, I was talking with a distiller in Southern Ohio, and they were saying, well, they aged their whiskey with spirals. I said, age it with spirals. Well, the idea is, of course, that the whiskey with these little spirals, all it really does is, in my opinion, just color the whiskey. You don't get anything from it. Right. And then it was one of those, we were someplace, and I saw spicewood, and it's like, wait a minute, I have an idea. So we spent a while. It took almost a year to get this, because it's a combination of how much
And how long?
and how long.
And when, right? I
And
it's
when.
like,
There-
all those come into play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of variation. And we missed a lot on the first time through. There was a lot of duplication to get where we got to before we nailed down exactly how much and how long and when.
Very cool. All right.
Okay. And then this comes out December 1st,
We're getting the advanced tasting.
the advanced tasting. Now, you guys really didn't taste this, okay? Since it's not available, the state says until December 1st.
Whiskey.
Exactly.
So being
I'm so excited for our December 9th show that we're doing.
I know.
So the thing we always get a little pushback on is people like to push back about being from Cleveland or being Lake Erie, use
Yeah,
Lake
use
Erie
Lake Erie water,
or
yeah.
whatever, right? So I decided it was our turn to push back. So Cinnamon Whiskey's name is Burning River.
Love it.
I do.
I love it.
I do love it. And this is really good because it's
Well, let's just be honest. This is dangerous because what proof is this?
That is 60 proof.
You wouldn't know it had any proof. I mean, this is
it's just
this is
good.
really good.
And we said it before, and this is the difficulty with flavored whiskeys is
good.
that many are too strong. And we talked about a number of them off air.
Right.
This is spot on a cinnamon whiskey that whether you drink, you could drink this straight.
Great holiday drink.
And then obviously there's a number of things that are pretty obvious that you could put this in that are this just complements it.
And we have a couple of cocktails that we use the cinnamon whiskey in.
Oh yeah.
So what do
Great
you
holiday drink.
What are the ones that you usually that you would put it in?
Well with an apple cider and caramel. Okay, I mean that is like
Oh yeah.
the way to go.
Oh yeah.
That would have been handy handing out Halloween candy.
Yeah.
the
Where,
other night.
where were you, Fred? Before
I
that?
know.
We needed.
You should have.
Okay, and then we have #1 selling dill pickle vodka in the state of Ohio.
Really?
That's the last of the tastings for all the obvious reasons.
Yes.
Yes, we're done. Best way to describe this: pickle juice out of a jar minus the vinegar at 80 proof. That is the best description I can give you.
it. This sounds great.
Okay, you
Charcoal
got-
filter.
It is charcoal filtered through 28 feet of activated charcoal.
So explain
why-
to our
why would you do that?
Exactly. Explain to our listening audience why the process.
And that it starts out with the dill pickle vodka starts out with our regular vodka, and then we infuse the dill.
Okay.
The reason behind that is when you talk about vodka, people say a couple of things. One, it's got a bite. Two, it's got that thing that goes on in the back of your throat after you drink the vodka. Well, the only way to get rid of that is you got to remove it. And how do you remove it? You remove it from activated charcoal. So for us, we'll do, let's say we have 200 gallons of vodka that we're going to run through our activated charcoal. It'll take 2.5 days.
Wow.
We run it through that slow. It literally drips through the charcoal. And without divulging a lot, we cap the bottom so we maintain the vodka in the cylinder and allow it to just drip out so that it captures all it. Now you get into micropores and all those wonderful things with activated charcoal, but the idea behind it is you should be able to sip it.
Yeah.
Okay, which you guys did. I mean, it's one of those you should be able to, you don't have to do a shot with that.
Sure.
Okay, so that then becomes this. And again, all natural, nothing artificial. So I'm gonna pour this and I'm gonna get some Bloody Mary mix.
I love it. But you came up with this like dill. We've seen this now. This is our second episode that we've seen a dill spirit. So when did this one come about?
Well, the way this one came out, and this is from my son Tony. We did the vodka, and people were coming in and saying, do you have blueberry, raspberry, all the flavored vodkas? Well, we contacted the flavor manufacturers, and I have sitting out here, without exaggeration, 150 little vials of flavors. Well, the problem with them is they were either artificial, chemical, or you had to mix them with simple syrup and put them in. And I thought it destroyed what we were doing with the vodka. So we're going to say, okay, we're just going to sell a standard vodka. And my son said, what about dill pickle? Now, my son is one of those, from the time he could reach the refrigerator, would drink the pickle juice out of the pickle jar.
That's my daughter.
Okay, so you go back and the pickles are there, but the juice is gone.
Yep.
Okay, so he came up with this idea, and I said to him, Tony, who is going to buy dill pickle vodka? Everybody. Okay,
Well, and to
so
be-
he reminds me of that often.
And to be fair, what we had was pickle. The dill is different. I mean, you can taste the dill.
And that was whiskey. This is vodka. And I think when you talk Bloody Marys, which I'm a bit of a fan of.
Micro Bloody Mary. So if any bar or restaurant is not utilizing Lake Erie Distillery's dill pickle,
This is the best hack
It's
you will
so
ever have.
good.
But
It
you
is
just
so
cheated
good.
the market because you could throw this in there
That
and
is
it
so good.
gives you a Bloody Mary with all the flavor that people add to it, right?
This'll
People
be-
throw a bunch of things in Bloody Marys because they have to.
my Ohio State Michigan party, I am getting this.
Oh, heck yeah, you are.
This is awesome.
Now I'll tell you, we have done 8 festivals across Ohio, and in each one we've used a different Bloody Mary mix because depending on where we're at to get the Bloody Mary mix. The key, that's the secret ingredient.
Were you at the Cleveland Pickle Fest?
We were.
Outstanding.
646 drinks we served there.
Wow. It was a
I
pretty
believe it.
successful event, too.
I
from what
believe
heard.
it.
Yeah, great
it
event.
was very busy.
Great event.
That was so. I will say this. I mean, when you look across this lineup, this is what I like. Is it's a variety of spirits. So no matter what you like, you can pick whether it's vodka, rum, bourbon, flavors. You know, I go back to that was amazing, but then I go back to the maple whiskey, as we called it, breakfast whiskey, and then your bourbon, which is really. I think it's a great story, and I also think it's also this is what we do, and it's what I want to drink, so I made it. Right. And I think that's a testament to a really smooth bourbon that, let's face it, I would be more than happy to drink any night of the week. I mean, that's awesome.
I've enjoyed it. I mean, we've gone to places where, maybe some places it's a little bit rough, but you appreciate the effort. This is really good bourbon, whiskey, and rum and vodka. I mean, you really can sip it. You can enjoy it with a complement of, like in this case, a Bloody Mary mix. We said this in coffee. I mean, it's just pretty versatile, quite frankly.
And the other thing we've done with it is our price points are below the market.
It's important.
So how do you do that?
Well, it's one of those that, and it sounds pompous, and I don't mean it to be that way. But I've had the other business for 40 years.
Yeah.
I made my profit there. I do this as a hobby. Yeah. And if you do things as a hobby, it's not about making profit. It's about covering the expenses of your employees, keeping the lights on, that type of thing. But I don't need to make big dollars with this. I go back to the bourbon particularly, when her and Kathy and I got together, if I wanted to buy a bottle of bourbon, that means we either didn't eat or didn't pay the rent. Okay? So when we came to this, it's like I want to price this where somebody can go and get a high quality top line bottle of bourbon for $39 and not break the bank and actually enjoy what they're drinking without that bite and all the aftertaste that goes with some of the others.
That also goes to what we've said, which is truly, one, thank you, and two, there are a lot of great bourbons, and I think people get caught up on the price point is X, and this one's X plus, so that's got to be better. That is not true. I mean, you really need to know your bourbon. You need to try it out. And I think that, Lake Erie Distillery's bourbon here, and that's an amazing price point for that bourbon.
We did a bourbon tasting, micro shots. It was kind of like a Sweet 16. So we had, this bracket, advanced, and this. So you could imagine it could be a lot if you did some
Everyone
shots.
had rides home, just
Yes.
for the record.
But
It was Sweet 16.
Yeah, but it was amazing how far some of the Ohio bourbons went when you really tasted them. And we also did a blind tasting, which we love doing blind tastings. You take out anything and just say, taste what this is. And we won't go into who won or what, but all I will tell you is it was local bourbons were competing against Blanton's and some of those others and did just fine. Yeah, because people got that out of their mind and they didn't say, oh, this has to be good because it costs X.
And I really think a blind tasting is the move.
Those are the best ways to go.
Because that really tells you, where do you stand?
That's right.
We did that a couple of weeks back here with one of the very well-known brands that people stand in line for 4 hours at Giant Eagle to get. Yeah. Did a blind taste test. I won 100% of the time.
Exactly.
$40 a bottle less.
Yeah.
But if I tell them the price, I lose because you get that mindset.
You get a mindset that it's not as good and that it's so wrong.
$20 for a bottle, it's much better than the $70 bottle, much better than the $39 bottle. Right. And that is not the case.
It's just not. And it really is a smooth bourbon that you can sip. And I appreciate the fact that, everything that we had here, whether it was flavored, whether it was straight whiskey, is got that smooth. There's no bite to it. So that's a great offering.
As far as I know, this is will be the entire product line. I don't want to get to the point where you add so many that you lose quality control on what you're making.
Oh, well, you have someone for
That's
she's
right.
3.
Yeah, she's 3.
And she's good. She will hold you accountable.
So it's one of those, the seasonal ones, we'll probably do a couple of seasonals. But as far as the base product line, I really don't think we're going to add anything else to it. Our next seasonal coming up, though, that I'm working on.
I was just about to ask you, so what do we got?
Jalapeno whiskey.
Whoa.
Jalapeno whiskey.
I
That's
feel
gonna be
like,
interesting
so when
taste.
are you going to release it?
We're looking at spring.
So I'm
Nice.
thinking Cinco de Mayo.
That's right.
I
That's right. I
really-
think Fred was too. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. That'd be a good taste.
So in fact, as you guys came in, sitting on the barrel out in the bottle shop is a gallon jar of 194 proof neutral spirits with jalapenos in the bottom. They used to be red and green. They're now white.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So we're going to take that. We're going to reduce that down to make an essence out of it, and that'll be what we're going to use to flavor barrels, so we can control the consistency barrel to barrel to barrel.
Well, we can't thank you both enough for certainly the phenomenal spirits, but also your hospitality. This has been fantastic, and I've enjoyed myself. Certainly, it's a good way to kick off a Saturday.
Oh, exactly.
But yeah, here at 4277, is it Hammond or Hammond? Hammond Parkway here in Willoughby, Ohio. You can certainly come here to the location and pick up a bottle. And as Fred and Kathy pointed out, I think the Ghost Whiskey, the Winter Whiskey, will only be sold here. Check it out. Whether you're a bourbon enthusiast or just somebody who's interested in becoming one, perhaps, you'll be treated right here. You'll be able to take a tour of the facility, and they'll help you along the way, teach a little bit about bourbon and whiskey and other spirits.
Oh, exactly. And I mean, you have, we know the Ghost Whiskey is gone for this year. It'll be back on October 1st. Winter Whiskey, November 18th, and then all the other offerings. I mean, whether you want to, I can say this, tailgating or Joe's house for the game, Ohio State, Michigan, the Dill Pickle Bloody Marys are going to be amazing. So we can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys coming in.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.